Welcome guys, Mr. Hyatt here. This is the last section of the Chapter 11 lecture. We're starting with protecting and sustaining wetlands. So wetlands tend to be really productive. You see here a couple of things that they do. They provide natural flood and erosion control, and they maintain water quality. They filter water through the living organisms that live in the water. The effect of rising sea levels you see there. Notice that the title of this slide is talking about coastal and inland wetlands. So specifically coastal wetlands, as sea levels rise, they're going to be flooded, and they're no longer going to be wetlands. They're going to be lakes and ponds and things along those lines. So obviously rising seas are going to really damage these wetlands that help us a lot with our water quality and things along those lines. So what can we do? We can use strict zoning laws like we've been talking most of this semester. You see here that in the U.S. you need a federal permit to fill wetlands greater than 3 acres. Anything smaller than that you can just fill. Mitigation banking is something that I personally know someone who does mitigation banking. It's kind of the idea that if you cut down a tree, you have to replant a tree. And in this case, if you destroy a wetland, you need to rebuild a wetland. It is kind of a last resort because it's artificial. You're going to be creating a habitat instead of letting nature run its course, things along those lines. But it's better than not doing anything. Moving on to freshwater lakes, rivers, and fisheries. It all comes down to HIPCO. There's a link on this slide to HIPCO if you don't remember what that acronym stands for. Excuse me, sorry. But here are our major threats on freshwater ecosystems. Again, HIPCO would apply. 40% of the world's rivers are dammed, so that's disrupting the habitat. Freshwater wetlands are being destroyed. We've got invasive species. We've got threatened species, overfishing, of course, and then human population is going to infringe upon freshwater sources because we live closer to freshwater sources. Your book spends a decent amount of time talking about the Great Lakes. Collectively, they're the world's largest body of fresh water, so kind of like we've been talking about getting the most bang for our buck, let's protect the biggest space. You see there 162 non-native species. Sea lampreys, zebra mussels, quagga mussels, Asian carp, all those different species are in the different Great Lakes. Most of them came across the ocean in the hulls of ships. Maybe they were stuck to a ship, something like that. Zebra mussel, for example, came from the Black Sea. A ship that was transporting some sort of fish sucked up a bunch of zebra mussels and then came to America and dumped all those zebra mussels in the Great Lakes, and now we see things like this. You see zebra mussels that are attached to a current meter here in Lake Michigan. They're pretty thick. The next slide has a picture of an Asian carp from Lake Michigan. We've talked a little bit about Asian carp and invasive species, so that fish is going to dominate that ecosystem. That's not a small fish. It's almost as tall as the guy. Excuse me. One issue, you see the Columbia River is a good example. How do you manage a river basin when it crosses into 2 countries? What's illegal in Canada might not be illegal here, and vice versa. Snake River, same kind of thing. Make sure you check out that. Case study in your book. There are many dams on the Columbia River. Snake River, I believe, has some as well. But those dams provide hydroelectric power, which is awesome. We've been talking all year about the need to shift to renewable energy, so that's great. We're creating renewable energy. We're not using fossil fuels, all those types of things. We're also pooling irrigation water. So water that would just flow past, we stop it and we can use it to irrigate crops. But that's going to really impact salmon. Salmon travel in the Columbia River to spawn. Those dams block the fish as well as they block the water. So there certainly are issues. You see our ecological services of rivers, so if we disrupt those, we're going to lose those ecological services. So what can we do? Essentially protect watersheds. Make sure you know what the definition of a watershed is. Basically, this is kind of the idea of act locally and it'll have effects globally. So basically, if we protect our water, and the next county over protects their water, and the next county over protects their water, and so on and so on and so on, eventually all freshwater ecosystems will be protected. You see that we layer things. We've got laws that protect freshwater ecosystems. There are economic incentives, things like tourism, that roll into freshwater wetlands and watersheds, all types of aquatic biomes, aquatic ecosystems is the word I was looking for. There are wild and scenic rivers. You see in 1968, the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act was adopted. Basically, it's about 3% of the U.S. Rivers, but it's kind of the idea that we want to protect our most barren landscapes. So if it hasn't been touched by humans, let's keep it that way. A lot of our rivers have had cities build up around them. These rivers don't. So there's some desire to expand that law, and there's obviously some desire to shrink that law or reduce it and cover fewer rivers and streams so we can open them up to industry. So last section in this chapter, what are the priorities? Of course, these priorities, like most things in our book, come from E.O. Wilson. And these are the things that he says would have the biggest and quickest impact on our watersheds and on all aquatic biodiversity. Complete mapping the world's aquatic biodiversity. Yeah, we've talked about that before. Identify and preserve those hot spots. Create large and fully protected marine reserves. Truly make them reserves so that we can't dump our mining refuge water and we can't dredge and things like that. Protect and restore lakes and rivers. A lot of our rivers and lakes have been damaged because we needed them for industry and commercial processes. Ecological restoration projects worldwide. We'll talk a little bit more about that in class. I've got an example from Iraq that we'll take a look at. And then make conservation financially rewarding. Like I said yesterday, until it becomes profitable, it's not going to be sustainable. We can come up with some great ideas, but if it's going to cost people money continually, those ideas just aren't going to take hold and they're not going to last long. So that's chapter 11.